My name is David Miller. I'm 45 years old, and I work as a cybersecurity analyst for the United States government. For the past 10 years, I've dedicated my life to protecting critical national information, often on classified missions that take me to places I can't even mention. It's a job that demands precision, patience, and above all, the ability to always stay 3 steps ahead of any threat. My wife, Sarah, never truly understood what I do. To her, I was just the computer guy who spent too much time away from home. She didn't grasp the complexity of my work, nor the risks we face daily to maintain national security, much less the financial stability my career provided for our family. Sarah has always been a vibrant social person. At 42, she was constantly chasing new experiences, what she liked to call breaking free from the limitations of our lifestyle. According to her, my profession was monotonous, and our marriage was boring. I've always been discreet and methodical, essential traits in my line of work, but she often mistook them for naivety. In the months leading up to my current mission in the Middle East, I began noticing changes in Sarah's behavior. She started taking frequent trips to visit family, bought a new phone, and her conversations became hushed whenever I was nearby. What caught my attention the most were her sudden questions about our mortgage and the title to our home. My cybersecurity instincts kicked in. Minor details that most people would overlook raised red flags for me: unusual login patterns on our online accounts, unauthorized credit checks under my name, and a drastic shift in Sarah's spending habits. As I often say at work, small anomalies point to big problems. That's when I took action. Quietly, I transferred the deed to our house into an irrevocable trust under my sole control. Sarah had no knowledge of the trust. I also moved the bulk of our funds into an offshore account, leaving only what was necessary in our joint accounts to avoid immediate suspicion. I installed an advanced home security system with video and audio recording, accessible remotely through an encrypted connection. I documented every suspicious transaction, logged every irregular login, and kept a detailed record of all our conversations, including her constant complaints about my absence. As an extra layer of protection, I set up what we call in the field a financial kill switch, a protocol that allows me to freeze all joint accounts instantly in case of fraudulent activity. It's a standard procedure I use both professionally and personally. Through the home monitoring system, I uncovered the full extent of what was happening. I saw Sarah and a man I didn't recognize, whom I later identified as Mark, speaking with our real estate agent months before my departure. They were openly discussing the sale of the house and the title details, which they believed were still under my name. Mark, as I later found out, was a local fitness instructor Sarah had met at a wellness retreat. But he wasn't just a fling. Through a quiet investigation, I discovered that Mark had a particular history. He specialized in seducing the wives of military personnel and government workers deployed overseas, convincing them to sell property below market value while their husbands were away. This wasn't a moment of passion. It was a calculated plan to siphon off my assets, based on the assumption that I was just another absent and clueless husband who'd find out too late to do anything. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The message came on a cold night while I was stationed at a remote base in the Middle East. It was 3 a.m. local time when my encrypted phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "I'm with Mark now. We sold the house. I'm not coming back. Your stuff's in storage." Attached to the message was a photo that made me smirk bitterly. It was our real estate agent smiling wide, posing with Sarah and Mark in front of what they thought was our house, with a shiny "sold" sign planted in the front yard. A chill ran down my spine, but not from despair. It was the same sensation I get when identifying a critical security breach, a surge of adrenaline mixed with absolute mental clarity. I took a deep breath, looked at the photo one more time, and typed my response. Understood. 2 words. Nothing more. They had no idea what was coming. In the hours that followed, my cyber operations training took over. While Sarah and Mark were likely celebrating what they thought was the perfect scam, I was calmly executing my contingency plan. First, I activated the financial kill switch. With a few clicks on my encrypted military laptop, every joint account was frozen. The money from the supposed home sale, deposited into what they believed was a shared account, became instantly inaccessible. In a matter of minutes, I turned their celebration into a financial nightmare. The first panicked messages came in before dawn. Sarah, David, what did you do? The house money is gone. Then Mark, dude, something's wrong with the accounts. The agent's freaking out. My response was simple. Contact my lawyer. Over the next few days, their desperation escalated. Sarah called multiple times a day, swinging between pleading and threatening. David, please, let's talk about this misunderstanding. I never meant for it to go this far. Then, you can't do this, that money is ours too. Mark came in hot. Listen, Miller, you're sabotaging a legit deal. I'll make this ugly for you. Then he tried the logical approach. Man, be reasonable. Sarah just wants to move on with her life. Every message, every call was logged and recorded. They didn't realize each word was just more evidence against them. The real estate agent, Robert Chen, found himself in an even worse situation. He thought he was facilitating a legitimate sale, but soon learned not only had the title never been in the name they assumed, it was protected by an irrevocable trust that left him completely out of the loop. Chen reached out to me directly. Mr. Miller, I need to understand what's going on. Some documents aren't adding up. That's when my attorney, James Patterson, a specialist in military and civil law who works with government employees in sensitive cases, officially stepped in. James wasted no time. Within 48 hours, he compiled all the evidence I had gathered. The security system recordings of their secret conversations, financial records showing the attempted fraud, and complete documentation of the trust safeguarding our property. The first official confrontation happened via video call. James scheduled a meeting with Sarah, Mark, and the real estate agent to clarify the legal situation. I joined the call from a secure military base in the Middle East. When James began presenting the evidence, their reactions were immediate and telling. Sarah visibly turned pale when she saw the recordings of her conversations with Mark about getting rid of David and grabbing the money before he comes back. Mark tried to deny everything, then shifted the blame to Sarah. Dude, she told me you two were divorcing. She said you had agreed to all of this. Robert Chen, the agent, looked like he might faint when he realized he'd been roped into an attempted real estate scam. I didn't know the title was in a trust. Sarah showed me documents. She said she had power of attorney. James was surgical. Mr. Chen, the documents Mrs. Miller provided were forged. We have forensic analysis confirming that. Additionally, the three of you communicated for months planning this fraudulent transaction, which constitutes conspiracy. Sarah tried one last emotional play. David, we were married for 15 years. Are you really going to destroy my life over this? My response was the same one I give when identifying a national security threat. Sarah, you destroyed your own life the moment you decided to commit fraud. The consequences of your actions are yours, not mine. Mark got more aggressive. You're a psychopath, Miller. Who plans something like this? James stepped in before I could respond. Someone who protects the interests of the United States, Mr. Thompson. Someone trained to identify and neutralize threats. You picked the wrong person to try and fool. From that moment on, things quickly spiraled out of control for them. Sarah tried to hire an attorney but realized that with the accounts frozen, she had no funds to pay for competent legal help. Mark started getting calls from other women who had discovered his behavioral pattern. Apparently, I wasn't the first husband he tried to deceive, just the first one prepared for it. Realtor Robert Chen was now under investigation by the State Real Estate Commission. James had submitted all the evidence of collusion, and Chen was at risk of losing his license permanently. As their lives descended into chaos, I continued my work in the Middle East with a clear conscience. My superiors had noticed my ability to handle a personal crisis without affecting my professional performance. In fact, my commanding officer told me, Miller, the way you handled your personal situation shows exactly why you're valuable to us. Cold-headed, strategic, and flawless execution. Justice was taking care of itself, and I didn't even need to be physically present to watch it unfold. 2 weeks after the devastating video call, things began to escalate in ways even I hadn't predicted. What I had planned as a strategic defense turned into an avalanche of consequences they had triggered themselves. Robert Chen was the first to fall. The state real estate board not only suspended his license but also launched a criminal investigation for document fraud. James called me from the base. "David, Chen is trying to cut a deal. He wants to testify against Sarah and Mark in exchange for a reduced sentence." Apparently, it wasn't the first time Chen had facilitated shady transactions, and my meticulous documentation had opened Pandora's box on several other similar cases. Mark Thompson was in even worse shape. Once the story got out, something inevitable in a small town like ours, other women began to come forward. Jennifer Walsh, the wife of a sergeant deployed in Afghanistan. Lisa Rodriguez, married to a State Department employee on mission in Africa. Patricia Moore, whose husband worked for the CIA. All of them had similar stories. Mark would seduce them during their husband's absences, gain their trust, and then convince them to make temporary financial transactions that became permanent. The difference? None of the other husbands had the security background or legal resources that I did. James was impressed. "David, not only did you protect yourself, but you ended up exposing a larger criminal operation. The FBI is now interested in the case." The Bureau discovered that Mark wasn't acting alone. There was a small network targeting the wives of deployed military and government employees. Sarah was in a downward spiral. With no access to the funds she thought she'd have, she couldn't pay rent for the apartment she shared with Mark. When she tried to return to our house, she found the electronic locks had been changed, something I had done remotely the day I received her message. She started flooding me with increasingly desperate messages. "David, I made a terrible mistake. Please give me a chance to explain." Then, "I never loved Mark. It was all just a huge misunderstanding." And finally, "You're going to leave me on the street?" After 15 years of marriage, my response remained the same. "All communications must go through my attorney." The turning point came when Sarah made one last desperate move. She hired a cheap criminal defense attorney and tried to accuse me of coercive control and financial abuse. Her lawyer, clearly out of his depth, reached out to James suggesting a settlement. James nearly laughed on the phone. "Her lawyer wants to negotiate? Based on what? She committed document fraud, attempted theft, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. We have everything recorded, documented, and corroborated." That's when James played our final card. He arranged a second meeting, this time with a state prosecutor and an FBI agent present. Sarah showed up with her budget lawyer, Mark brought a public defender, and Chen arrived with a real estate law specialist. James presented not only our original evidence but also all the material that had come from the expanded investigation. The prosecutor was blunt. "Ms. Miller, Mr. Thompson, you are formally charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery of legal documents, and in Mr. Thompson's case operating an ongoing fraudulent scheme." Sarah completely broke down. "I just wanted out of the marriage. I never meant for it to go this far." Mark made a pathetic defense. "Dude, I was just helping her get out of a bad relationship. How was I supposed to know about trusts and all that legal stuff?" The FBI agent looked directly at the camera I was connected to. "Mr. Miller, your documentation and preventive protection methods didn't just safeguard your own assets. They helped us dismantle an operation that's been hurting military families for years. The Bureau would like to consult with you on personal security protocols for government employees on foreign assignment." James smiled. "My client will be available for consultations once he returns from his current deployment." Then he turned to Sarah and Mark. "As for the divorce settlement, the terms are simple. Sarah waives any claim to assets protected by the trust, repays the funds misappropriated from joint accounts, and signs a non-disclosure agreement. In return, my client will not pursue maximum sentencing in the criminal cases." Sarah had no choice. Mark was facing federal charges that could land him in prison for decades. Chen had already lost everything and was fully cooperating with authorities. 3 months later, I got a call from my direct superior. "Miller, The Pentagon wants to offer you a position in the new high-level personal security division. 40% salary increase based in Washington, no extended overseas deployments. Apparently, my ability to anticipate and neutralize threats, both cyber and personal, had caught the attention of the top brass. Meanwhile, Sarah was living in a one-bedroom apartment, working part-time at a department store. Mark was serving a 5-year sentence for federal fraud. Chen had lost his real estate license permanently and was now working as a used car salesman. Justice didn't just prevail, it multiplied in ways I never could have planned. Sometimes protecting yourself properly doesn't just save your own life. It exposes an entire system of corruption that's hurting innocent people. As I always say in my line of work, the best defense is flawless preparation. 6 months later, I was back in the United States, fully settled into my new position at the Pentagon. The high-level personal security division was exactly what I needed. Intellectually challenging, well-paid, and structured enough to finally give me a real personal life for the first time in years. My new role involved developing security protocols for government officials in sensitive positions. Ironically, my personal experience with Sarah and Mark became an internal case study on how domestic threats can compromise national security. I was literally being paid to teach others how to protect themselves from what I had endured. The divorce was finalized without drama. Sarah signed all the documents James prepared, officially waiving any rights to the assets held in the trust and reimbursing the amounts from the joint accounts. The non-disclosure agreement meant she couldn't publicly discuss the details of the case, protecting both my privacy and my position in the government. James told me Sarah had made one final plea. She asked if you'd meet her for a mature conversation about what went wrong. My answer was simple. There's nothing to talk about. She made her choices, and I made mine. With the recovered funds from the attempted fraudulent sale and the reimbursed joint account money, I had a significant amount available. I decided to put it to good use. I established the Miller Foundation for Cybersecurity Education, offering full scholarships to underprivileged students interested in pursuing careers in digital protection. The first group of scholarship recipients included 3 children of military families who had fallen victim to schemes similar to Mark's. Seeing these young people get a chance to build careers in cybersecurity gave me a sense of fulfillment no traditional revenge ever could. My new life in Washington was everything I didn't know I wanted. A modern apartment in Georgetown, stimulating work, and for the first time in years, time for genuine personal relationships. I started dating Dr. Amanda Chen. Yes, ironically the same last name as the realtor, but she's a forensic psychologist working with the FBI. Amanda completely understands the challenges of a government career and values both personal security and mutual trust. 3 months ago, I received an interesting message. It came from an anonymous email address and contained only a screenshot and a news link. The screenshot showed that Sarah's social media profile had been deactivated. The link led to a local news article. Ex-fitness instructor convicted for scamming military families receives additional sentence for tax evasion. Apparently, Mark had tried to hide income from his fraudulent schemes, and the IRS caught him. 5 more years of federal prison. There was no sender identified, but the message was clear. Even from the shadows, someone wanted me to know that justice was still being served. I didn't respond to the message. There was no need. Last week, during a high-level security meeting, General Morrison told me something that perfectly summed up the entire experience. Miller, you represent the best of preventive security thinking. You didn't just protect your own interests. You dismantled a threat that was harming other military families. That's systemic thinking. He was right. It was never about revenge. It was about applying the same principles I use professionally to my personal life. Identify threats, prepare defenses, document everything, and let people face the natural consequences of their actions. Sarah and Mark made their choices based on the belief that I was just another absent, clueless husband. They didn't research who they were dealing with. They never considered that someone trained to protect state secrets might have applied those same skills to safeguard his own life. The greatest lesson I learned wasn't about distrust or paranoia. It was about the power of quiet preparation and meticulous documentation. In cybersecurity, we call it defense in depth, multiple independent layers of protection. I applied the same concept to my personal life, and it worked flawlessly. Today, at 46 years old, I have a thriving career, a healthy, genuine relationship, and the deep satisfaction of knowing my actions helped protect others from going through what I did. The Miller Foundation has already supported dozens of students, and some are now beginning their own careers in national security agencies. Sometimes the best revenge is simply to live well and build something better than what others tried to destroy. For all of you watching this video, the message is simple. Never underestimate the value of preparation, documentation, and strategic patience. And remember, people always reveal who they truly are through their actions. The real question is, are you prepared for that revelation? If this story resonated with you, please leave a like on the video. It helps me keep sharing these experiences. Comment below if you've been through something similar. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this one, and share it with friends who could benefit from these lessons. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.